Alec McKinney.
I believe we share equal responsibility for everything that happened.
Why?
No one tried to stop anyone. No one forced anyone into this. We were both mutually agreeing.
On May 7, 2019, a shooting unfolded at STEM School Highlands Ranch in Colorado that would expose how personal struggles can spiral into devastating consequences. Alec McKinney walked into his school with a plan that would change lives forever, driven by experiences that had pushed him to a breaking point. What pushed this student to such desperate measures? McKinney had faced challenges related to his gender identity, experiencing treatment from peers that left him feeling isolated and targeted. His early life had been marked by instability, including witnessing domestic discord at age 5, experiencing multiple evictions, and enduring his parents' divorce. These factors created a vulnerable mindset that would eventually lead to his involvement in the school incident. He had also experimented with substances, which further complicated his mental state during this period. The planning began weeks before the actual event. McKinney and another student coordinated their actions, obtaining weapons and discussing their intentions through text messages and in-person conversations. They created detailed plans about how the incident would unfold, even recording videos discussing their intentions. On the day of the incident, they opened fire inside the school, creating chaos as students scrambled for safety. One student, Kendrick Castillo, lost his life while attempting to stop the situation, tackling one of the individuals involved. His heroic actions saved countless lives but cost him his own. 8 others sustained injuries ranging from minor to critical. The response from law enforcement was swift, with officers arriving within minutes to secure the scene and establish a perimeter around the building. During the investigation, authorities discovered McKinney had been under the influence of substances at the time, with toxicology reports revealing cocaine in his system. Video evidence showed the planning stages, including footage they had recorded discussing their intentions. Witness testimonies painted a picture of premeditation rather than impulsive action, with students recalling concerning behaviors in the days leading up to the incident. The investigation uncovered text messages between McKinney and his accomplice that detailed their plans and motivations. How did the legal system handle this case? The trial proceedings revealed the extent of McKinney's struggles and the deliberate nature of his actions. He pleaded guilty to 17 counts, including first-degree murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy charges, avoiding a lengthy trial. The plea agreement came after extensive negotiations between his defense team and prosecutors. During sentencing, McKinney addressed the court, stating he wanted others to suffer from trauma like I have, revealing the depth of his emotional pain and his mindset during the incident. The judge handed down a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 40 years. The sentence reflected both the severity of the act and McKinney's youth at the time. Victims' families filled the courtroom, their statements emphasizing the permanent loss they experienced. Castillo's family spoke about the void left by his death and how his bravery would forever be remembered. The community struggled to understand how such an event could occur in their school, particularly at an institution known for its academic excellence and supportive environment. McKinney is currently serving his sentence in a Colorado correctional facility, with his earliest possible release date around 2060. The next case would unfold across the Atlantic, where street disputes turned fatal. Joshua Alexander. In London on December 5, 2023, a mother of 2 was in her home when shots rang out through her front door. Leanne Gordon, 42, became a victim of escalating tensions between groups that had been building for months in the Hackney area. Joshua Alexander had grown up in Hackney's challenging environment, where he became involved with individuals who would lead him down a destructive path. His family had attempted to relocate him to escape negative influences, But these efforts ultimately failed to prevent what would come next. The pressures of his environment and connections to organized groups shaped his trajectory toward that December night. He had been previously known to authorities and was considered at risk due to his associations. What led to this mother's tragic end? The incident stemmed from ongoing disputes between rival groups operating in the area. Gordon was not the intended target, but found herself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her home was targeted because of its location and perceived connections. On that evening, Alexander approached her residence and fired through the door, striking Gordon fatally. Her 2 children were present in the home during the incident, adding another layer of trauma to the already devastating loss. They witnessed the immediate aftermath and called emergency services. The investigation moved quickly, with Metropolitan Police collecting evidence from the scene. They recovered a glove containing Alexander's DNA near the location and found gunshot residue that linked him directly to the shooting. Witnesses provided statements about seeing him in the area around the time of the incident, and surveillance footage helped piece together his movements that night. Forensic ballistics experts analyzed the trajectory of the shots and the type of weapon used. Despite these findings, the weapon itself was never recovered, though the forensic evidence proved sufficient for prosecution. Phone records also placed Alexander near the scene during the critical time window. How did the courts respond to this case? Alexander's trial revealed disturbing details about his mindset and activities. Lyrics he had written glorified similar acts, providing insight into his state of mind and how he viewed such incidents. The prosecution presented a comprehensive case showing premeditation and disregard for human life. Evidence demonstrated that he had traveled to the location with intent and had taken steps to conceal his identity beforehand. The jury found Alexander guilty of murder after deliberating on the evidence. In December 2024, the judge sentenced him to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 29 years. The judge described him as dangerous and noted the calculated nature of his actions, emphasizing that Gordon was an entirely innocent party caught in ongoing disputes. Gordon's family delivered impact statements describing how their lives had been shattered by her loss, and how her children would grow up without their mother. Alexander is currently serving his sentence in a UK prison facility, with his earliest possible release not until the 2050s. Gordon's children continue to deal with the aftermath of witnessing their mother's final moments and are receiving ongoing support. The following case would reveal how a seemingly routine incident escalated beyond imagination. Randall Holman. On September 29, 2020, a mother in East Patchogue, New York, experienced an intrusion that would leave lasting trauma. Randall Holman entered a residence with intentions that went far beyond simple burglary, creating a situation that would result in serious consequences for all involved. The incident began as a break-in at a local home during daylight hours when the resident was home alone. Holman gained entry through an unlocked door and encountered a woman inside. What followed was a terrifying ordeal that lasted an extended period. The victim sustained injuries from a switchblade during the encounter, with wounds requiring medical treatment. The incident also occurred in front of the woman's young child, who was present in the home and witnessed portions of the event, adding another dimension of trauma to the situation. How was this perpetrator identified and apprehended? The victim survived the ordeal and was able to provide detailed information to law enforcement immediately following the incident. Suffolk County Police responded to the scene within minutes of receiving the emergency call and immediately began collecting evidence. Forensic analysis of the weapon and other physical evidence at the scene proved crucial in building the case. The investigation moved swiftly, with Holman identified through forensic evidence and witness descriptions. He was taken into custody within days of the incident. During questioning, the evidence against Holman became overwhelming. DNA analysis and witness statements corroborated the victim's account of events. The prosecution prepared a strong case as the legal proceedings moved forward, with forensic experts prepared to testify about the physical evidence linking Holman to the scene and the incident. What sentence did the court impose? Holman pleaded guilty to charges including first-degree burglary and other serious offenses, acknowledging his actions without proceeding to trial. The plea agreement came after negotiations between defense attorneys and prosecutors, taking into account various factors, including his age at the time and the strength of evidence against him. By pleading guilty, he avoided a trial that would have required the victim to testify in detail about her ordeal. In the sentencing hearing, the judge heard from the victim about the ongoing impact of the incident on her life and her family. She described the trauma that extended beyond the physical injuries, affecting her sense of security, her ability to feel safe in her own home, and her ongoing psychological well-being. Her child also required counseling to process what had been witnessed. The judge handed down a sentence of 3 to 9 years in prison, reflecting both the severity of the crimes and considerations related to his youth at the time of the offense. Holman is currently serving his sentence in a New York correctional facility. His case raised questions about juvenile involvement in serious home invasions and the balance between punishment and rehabilitation for young offenders. The victim continues her recovery process, working to rebuild her sense of safety with the support of counseling services. The Suffolk County District Attorney's Office emphasized their commitment to prosecuting such cases vigorously while also considering appropriate interventions for young offenders. The next case would take us to a school setting where unresolved conflicts reached a tragic conclusion. Eric Hainstock. September 29, 2006, marked a devastating day at Weston High School in Wisconsin, when a student brought a weapon onto campus with a specific target in mind. Eric Hainstock walked through the doors that morning carrying a grudge that would end in irreversible tragedy. Hainstock had grown up in difficult circumstances, facing challenges at home including reports of harsh treatment and living in poverty. His home life was marked by instability, with his father reportedly employing strict disciplinary methods. At school, he struggled with interactions with peers that left him feeling isolated and targeted. He had made multiple reports to school administrators about these issues, but felt his concerns were not adequately addressed or taken seriously. This sense of being unheard and unprotected contributed to his growing frustration and anger towards school authorities. What happened on that September morning? Hainstock arrived at school armed with a .22 caliber revolver and a 20-gauge shotgun that he had taken from his family's home. His target was Principal John Klang, whom he blamed for not taking action on his complaints about being targeted by peers. When Hainstock encountered Klang in the school hallway before classes began, he fired 3 shots from the revolver. Klang, despite being wounded, fought back and attempted to restrain Hainstock. Other staff members, including custodian David Thompson, joined in subduing Hainstock and holding him until police arrived on scene. Klang was rushed to a hospital in Madison, but succumbed to his injuries later that day. The school community was left reeling from the loss of their principal, a man many described as dedicated to his students and committed to creating a positive learning environment. Hainstock was immediately taken into custody and faced serious charges for his actions. The small rural community of Weston struggled to process how such an incident could occur in their close-knit school. The investigation revealed the extent of Hainstock's planning and his motivations. He had written notes expressing his intentions and his frustrations with how school officials had handled his situation. These writings, found at his home, provided prosecutors with evidence of premeditation. Investigators also discovered that he had told at least one person about his plans beforehand, though that individual did not report it to authorities. How did the legal proceedings unfold? Hainstock was charged as an adult, despite being only 15 at the time. His defense team argued that his difficult home life and unaddressed bullying had contributed to his actions, presenting evidence of the challenges he faced both at home and at school. Expert witnesses testified about his mental state and developmental stage. However, the prosecution emphasized the planned nature of the incident and the loss of a respected educator who had dedicated his life to helping students. The trial concluded with Hainstock being found guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. In 2007, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. During sentencing, he made statements about wanting to confront bullying, though these words provided little comfort to Klang's family and the school community, who had lost a dedicated leader. Hainstock is currently incarcerated in a Wisconsin correctional facility, with his earliest parole eligibility date in 2037. The next case would shift to London streets, where a minor altercation escalated fatally. Reese Lloyd Hall. As crowds gathered in London to celebrate New Year's Eve 2023, what should have been a night of celebration turned into tragedy on Primrose Hill. Harry Pittman had gone to watch the fireworks with friends when an encounter with Reese Lloyd Hall ended his life in seconds. Lloyd Hall had grown up in circumstances marked by family separation and exposure to domestic discord. He had special educational needs, including conditions affecting impulse control, including PTSD and ADHD. His environment had normalized carrying weapons, a practice he adopted despite the risks and legal consequences. On that December 31st night, he had a blade concealed on his person as he joined the crowds gathering on the hill to watch the midnight fireworks display. The hill was packed with thousands of people celebrating the arrival of the new year. What triggered this fatal encounter? The incident began with a minor physical bump between the two in the crowded space as people jostled for viewing positions. What could have been resolved with a simple apology instead escalated rapidly within seconds. Lloyd Hall pulled out his weapon and stabbed Pittman in the neck, severing a major blood vessel. The attack was captured on video by bystanders who were filming the fireworks, providing clear documentation of the incident and the moments leading up to it. Pittman collapsed immediately as his friends and witnesses called for emergency services. Despite rapid response from paramedics who were already stationed nearby for the event, he died at the scene from the severity of his injury. The celebration turned into chaos as police secured the area and began their investigation while thousands of people remained on the hill. Many witnesses were traumatized by seeing the incident unfold in what should have been a joyous moment. Metropolitan Police quickly identified Lloyd Hall through witness statements and the video evidence captured by multiple people. He was arrested shortly after the incident and charged with the offense. The weapon was recovered during the investigation, and forensic analysis confirmed it as the instrument used in the attack. The blade had been purchased illegally, raising questions about access to such weapons. What was the outcome of his trial? Lloyd Hall's trial included extensive testimony about his background and the factors that may have contributed to his actions. Expert witnesses discussed his PTSD and ADHD diagnoses and how these conditions affected his impulse control, particularly in tense or crowded situations. His defense team argued these conditions impaired his judgment and contributed to his rapid escalation of the minor bump into deadly force. However, the prosecution emphasized the unnecessary and disproportionate nature of the act and the devastating consequences of his decision to carry a weapon that night. The jury found him guilty of murder after reviewing all the evidence, including the video footage that clearly showed the incident. In sentencing, the judge noted the senseless nature of the incident and how a minor bump had resulted in a life being taken. Lloyd Hall was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 16 years. During the proceedings, he expressed that he was sorry for causing this, though his words could not undo the loss or ease the pain of Pittman's family. Pittman's family delivered emotional impact statements describing their grief and the future that was stolen from Harry. They spoke about his plans, his personality, and how their family would never be whole again. The case became a focal point in discussions about knife-related incidents among youth in London and the need for intervention programs to address the normalization of carrying weapons. Lloyd Hall is currently serving his sentence in youth custody within the UK prison system. Pittman's family established a memorial fund in his name, working to prevent similar tragedies and support youth programs. The following case would involve a high-speed decision with catastrophic consequences. Noah Gall.
3 years ago, in January of 2022, just before 11 o'clock at night, Gally was driving his BMW at over 150 miles an hour down State Road 7 near Delray Beach. He rear-ended a small SUV, causing it to swerve into the median and roll over multiple times. 5 of the people in the car were declared dead at the scene, and the 6th died in the hospital.
On May 14, 2022, a rural road in Belglade, Florida, became the scene of unimaginable loss when a luxury vehicle traveling at extreme speed collided with a truck carrying farm workers. Noah Gall's decision to drive at 151 miles per hour would end 6 lives and forever alter countless others. Gale came from an affluent background, raised in Wellington with advantages many don't experience. His father worked as an attorney, providing a comfortable lifestyle that included access to expensive vehicles. However, this privilege also gave him access to high-performance cars and a sense of invincibility that would prove deadly. On social media, he had been posting videos showing his speeding, documenting his dangerous behavior for online attention and reactions. These posts showed him repeatedly driving at excessive speeds on public roads, treating them as personal racetracks. What happened on that May afternoon? Gale was driving his luxury car on State Road 715, a rural 2-lane highway, when he approached a truck carrying workers returning from the fields. The truck was making a turn when Gall's vehicle, traveling at more than twice the speed limit, slammed into it with devastating force. The impact was so severe that 6 farm workers died at the scene: Alfredo Tovar, Abelardo Gonzalez, Isaias Miranda, Jose Arevalo, Ignacio Arevalo, and Marcelino Arevalo. The force of the collision was catastrophic, with the truck completely destroyed and debris scattered across a wide area. The crash reconstruction revealed the vehicle's speed through data extracted from the car's onboard systems, which recorded exact speeds and movements. Investigators also found social media posts showing Gale filming himself driving at excessive speeds in the days and weeks before the crash. These videos demonstrated a pattern of reckless behavior and complete disregard for safety. Some videos showed him laughing as the speedometer climbed higher, treating the dangerous behavior as entertainment. The surviving workers and families of the deceased were left devastated. Many of the victims were related, meaning entire families lost multiple members in a single moment. The Arevalo family alone lost 3 members. The farm worker community rallied around the affected families while processing their own collective trauma. Vigils were held, and support funds were established to help the families who had lost their primary breadwinners. What sentence reflected these deaths? Gale was charged with 6 counts of vehicular homicide, 1 for each life lost. During the legal proceedings, his defense team emphasized his youth and lack of prior criminal record, arguing for leniency. They presented him as a young person who made a terrible mistake with catastrophic consequences. In 2025, Gale pleaded guilty to all charges, accepting responsibility for his actions and avoiding a trial that would have been emotionally difficult for the victims' families. At sentencing, Gale reportedly stated he wishes he had died instead, expressing remorse for the devastation he caused. Family members of the victims spoke about their irreplaceable losses and the ongoing pain of living without their loved ones. They described the hardship of losing family members who were working to support relatives both in Florida and in their home countries. the judge sentenced him to 12.5 years in prison, a sentence that some families felt was insufficient given the magnitude of loss. With 6 lives taken in a single moment of recklessness, Gal is currently serving his sentence in a Florida correctional facility. The families of the victims continue to advocate for stricter penalties for reckless driving and better enforcement of speed limits on rural roads. If you've made it this far and enjoy deep dives into the most shocking criminal cases, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to press the bell icon. The next case would involve another vehicle, but this time substance impairment would be the deadly factor. Luke Garrett Riesecker. On December 26, 2024, families traveling through Texas were looking forward to the end of their holiday celebrations when a crash near Cleburne would change everything. Luke Garrett Riesecker was behind the wheel of a vehicle, impaired by THC, when he caused a collision that would claim 6 lives from a single family. Riesecker had limited public information about his background, though court records indicated his family appeared in support during proceedings. On that December day, he was driving while under the influence of THC, the active compound in cannabis that affects judgment, reaction time, and motor skills. His impairment would prove fatal for an entire family unit traveling together during the Christmas season. What happened during this holiday tragedy? The Georgia family was traveling when Riesecker's vehicle crossed into their lane. The collision was head-on and catastrophic, with the force of impact leaving no chance for survival for those in the other vehicle. 6 family members died at the scene, their holiday trip ending in unimaginable loss. The victims represented multiple generations, from grandparents to younger family members, all traveling together for what should have been a joyous occasion. Emergency responders arrived to find a devastating scene with multiple fatalities. The investigation began immediately, with Texas Department of Public Safety troopers securing the crash site and beginning the process of documenting evidence. The rural highway was closed for hours as investigators photographed the scene, measured skid marks, and examined both vehicles for mechanical issues. Toxicology tests revealed THC in Riesecker's system at the time of the crash, establishing impairment as a key factor. Blood samples taken after the crash showed levels indicating recent use. The investigation also examined whether speed was a factor, though the primary cause was determined to be the impaired driving that led to crossing the center line. Witness statements from other drivers on the road that day corroborated the findings about erratic driving before the collision. How did the courts address this case? Riesecker faced 6 counts of intoxication manslaughter, 1 for each life lost in the crash. The charges reflected the severity of driving while impaired and the catastrophic consequences that resulted. His defense team worked with prosecutors as the case moved through the legal system, though the evidence of impairment and the devastating loss of life made this a particularly serious case. During the trial proceedings, the prosecution presented the toxicology evidence, crash reconstruction data, and testimony about the victims' lives. The Georgia family's surviving relatives traveled to Texas to attend hearings and provide impact statements. They described the void left by losing 6 family members at once, the trauma of receiving that phone call during the holidays, and how their family would never recover from such a profound loss. They spoke about canceled future plans, missed milestones, and the empty chairs at family gatherings. The judge sentenced Riesecker to 65 years in prison, reflecting both the number of lives lost and the impaired state that caused the tragedy. The sentence meant he would serve a substantial portion of his life behind bars for his decision to drive while impaired. The judge emphasized during sentencing that driving under the influence is a choice, and that choice had ended 6 lives and devastated an entire family network. Riesecker is currently serving his sentence in a Texas correctional facility. The case became part of ongoing discussions about THC impairment and driving, particularly as cannabis laws change across various states. The Georgia family established a memorial fund in honor of their lost relatives, working to raise awareness about impaired driving of all types. Their advocacy emphasizes that all forms of impairment, not just alcohol, can turn vehicles into deadly weapons. The following case would take us to Minnesota, where a home invasion turned fatal. Fode Camara. On November 8, 2022, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, became the scene of a home invasion that would end with a young woman losing her life. Fode Camara, along with his brother, entered a residence with intentions orchestrated by someone else, leading to a fatal shooting. Camara had experienced a vulnerable upbringing with inadequate support, making him susceptible to manipulation by others. He and his brother John had become involved with Eric Haynes, who had a previous relationship with the victim, Zaria McKeever. Haynes manipulated the brothers into participating in the home invasion, using them to carry out his plan against McKeever. The brothers' vulnerability and Haynes's influence created a deadly combination. What unfolded during this home invasion? The plan involved entering McKeever's home while she was there. Camara was armed with a 9mm handgun as they forced their way into the residence. Once inside, a confrontation occurred between Camara and McKeever. According to his later statements, McKeever charged at him, and he fired 5 shots at close range, including shots to her head. The shooting was rapid and fatal, with McKeever dying from her injuries. The brothers fled the scene, but the investigation moved quickly. Brooklyn Park police collected forensic evidence from the scene, including shell casings and ballistic evidence. Witness statements and surveillance footage helped identify those involved. The investigation revealed that Haynes had orchestrated the entire event, manipulating the Camara brothers into carrying out the invasion and shooting. Detectives interviewed multiple people connected to the case, slowly piecing together the relationships and motives. Phone records showed communications between Haynes and the brothers in the days leading up to the invasion. Financial records suggested possible payments or promises made. The evidence painted a picture of manipulation, with Haynes using the brothers to exact revenge on his ex-partner. How did Camara's case conclude in court? During questioning, Camara told investigators he fired because McKeever charged at him, though the close-range nature of the shots and the home invasion context complicated this claim of self-defense. His attorney later released a statement where Camara expressed remorse, saying he didn't want to hurt Zaria in the worst way possible, acknowledging the gravity of what had occurred. Camara pleaded guilty to charges related to McKeever's death, accepting responsibility rather than proceeding to trial. The plea agreement took into account his age, his vulnerability to manipulation, and the role Haynes had played in orchestrating the entire incident. His brother also faced charges for his participation in the home invasion. In May 2024, Camara was sentenced to approximately 11 years in prison. The judge considered the circumstances, including his manipulation by Haynes, but also the fact that he pulled the trigger and ended McKeever's life. McKeever's family provided impact statements describing their loss and the trauma of losing her in such a manner. They spoke about her life, her plans for the future, and the void her absence created. Haynes faced separate charges for his role in orchestrating the home invasion and murder. His prosecution emphasized how he had used vulnerable individuals to carry out his plan, exploiting their circumstances for his own purposes. The case highlighted issues of manipulation and how adults can exploit young people into participating in serious crimes. Camara is currently serving his sentence in a Minnesota youth facility. The next case would unfold in the UK, where jealousy over a relationship led to a fatal stabbing. Haverhill teenager. On January 9, 2023, in a car park in Haverhill, UK, a confrontation between 2 individuals would end in a fatal stabbing. An unnamed individual, whose identity remains protected due to legal restrictions, attacked Harley Barfield in what prosecutors would describe as a premeditated act of jealousy. The perpetrator had no publicly available childhood or family details due to reporting restrictions common in UK cases involving individuals under 18. However, the investigation revealed that the motive centered on jealousy over a relationship with a female. This jealousy had been building, leading to the decision to confront Barfield in a way that would prove deadly. What happened in that car park? The perpetrator arranged to meet Barfield at a car park in Haverhill, setting up a confrontation. When they met, an altercation began that quickly turned deadly. The attacker stabbed Barfield 12 times, with multiple wounds striking vital areas. One of the stab wounds pierced Barfield's heart, causing fatal injury. The attack was sustained and deliberate, with the number of wounds indicating a frenzied assault. Barfield collapsed in the car park as the attacker fled the scene. Emergency services were called, but the severity of the injuries meant that despite their rapid response, Barfield could not be saved. He died from the multiple stab wounds, particularly the one that had penetrated his heart. The car park became a crime scene, with Suffolk police cordoning off the area and beginning their investigation. The perpetrator was arrested 45 minutes after the attack, having been quickly identified through witness statements and surveillance footage from the area. During the arrest, officers discovered the knife had been discarded in an attempt to destroy evidence. However, forensic experts were able to recover the weapon and link it definitively to the attack through blood evidence and DNA analysis. The investigation uncovered text messages and social media communications that showed the jealousy and planning that preceded the attack. These digital communications provided prosecutors with evidence of premeditation, demonstrating that this was not a spontaneous act, but rather a planned confrontation that escalated to fatal results. How did the legal system respond? The case proceeded to trial, where the prosecution presented the forensic evidence, witness testimony, and digital communications showing premeditation. The defense could not overcome the overwhelming evidence of a planned attack that resulted in 12 stab wounds. The jury found the perpetrator guilty of murder after deliberating on all the evidence presented. During sentencing, the judge imposed a life sentence with a minimum term of 17 years before parole eligibility. The sentence reflected the premeditated nature of the attack and the sustained assault that took Barfield's life. Barfield's mother attended the sentencing hearing and delivered an emotional impact statement. She stated that no sentence will ever be enough to compensate for the loss of her son, describing how her life had been shattered by his death. The perpetrator is currently serving the sentence in UK youth custody, which will eventually transition to adult prison facilities. The following case would take us to Colorado, where a party altercation turned fatal. Xavier Garcia. On March 23, 2024, an event center in Aurora, Colorado, became the scene of a shooting that would end a young man's life. Xavier Garcia was attending a party when an altercation escalated to deadly force, resulting in charges that would lead to decades in prison. Garcia had no publicly available background details in court records or media reports. What is known is that on that March evening, he was at a party at an Aurora event center where tensions rose between individuals present. The circumstances leading to the shooting involved personal disputes that had brought multiple people to a confrontation point. What led to this fatal shooting? The incident occurred during a party where Garcia and Joseph Martinez became involved in an altercation. The dispute involved Martinez's ex-partner's current boyfriend, creating a complex relationship dynamic that fueled the confrontation. Witnesses at the party reported seeing tensions escalate between the individuals involved before the situation turned violent. Garcia shot Martinez in the chest during the altercation. The gunshot was fatal, with Martinez collapsing at the scene. Other party attendees immediately called emergency services, but Martinez's injuries were too severe. He died from the gunshot wound to his chest, which had struck vital organs and caused massive internal trauma. Aurora police responded to the scene within minutes of the 911 calls. They secured the event center and began interviewing the numerous witnesses who had seen the altercation and shooting. Multiple people provided statements about what they had observed, including the argument that preceded the shooting and Garcia's actions. The investigation collected physical evidence from the scene, including shell casings and the weapon. Forensic analysis confirmed the ballistics evidence, and witness testimonies provided a clear picture of the events. Surveillance footage from the event center captured portions of the incident, giving investigators additional evidence to support the witness accounts. The evidence showed that Garcia had brought a firearm to the party, raising questions about his intentions and preparation. What was the outcome of Garcia's prosecution? Garcia was arrested and charged with second-degree murder for Martinez's death. The charge reflected the circumstances of the shooting, occurring during an altercation rather than through premeditation. His case moved through the Colorado court system as prosecutors built their case using the witness statements, forensic evidence, and surveillance footage. Garcia pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, acknowledging his responsibility for Martinez's death. The plea agreement avoided a trial that would have required numerous witnesses to testify about the traumatic events they witnessed at the party. By pleading guilty, Garcia accepted the consequences of his actions. On September 30th, 2025, Garcia was sentenced to 35 years in prison. The substantial sentence reflected the loss of Martinez's life and the circumstances of bringing a weapon to a party. Martinez's family attended the sentencing hearing, providing impact statements about their loss and how Martinez's death had affected their lives. They described his personality, his future plans, and the emptiness his absence created in their family. Garcia is currently serving his sentence in a Colorado correctional facility. His earliest possible release would not occur until the 2050s, meaning he will spend the majority of his adult life incarcerated for the shooting. The next case would involve a school dispute that escalated to a deadly ambush. Dadrian Martin.
17-year-old Dadrian Martin learned his fate for the 2024 murder of 15-year-old Isaac Cunningham.
And we shouldn't ever become used to children shooting children.
In June 2024, Roanoke, Virginia, became the scene of a shooting that stemmed from a school fight at William Fleming High School. Dadrian Martin carried a grudge from that earlier confrontation that would lead him to ambush and end another young person's life. Martin had no detailed public information about his childhood or background available in court records. What is documented is that he attended William Fleming High School, where he had been involved in a fight with Isaac Cunningham. That school altercation, which might have been resolved through school discipline or mediation, instead festered into something far more deadly. What happened after the school fight? Rather than letting the dispute end, Martin planned retaliation against Cunningham. He obtained a 9mm handgun and waited for an opportunity to confront Cunningham outside of school. When that opportunity came in June, Martin ambushed Cunningham and shot him 24 times. The excessive number of shots fired indicated a level of rage and determination that went far beyond a simple retaliation. Each shot represented a conscious decision to continue the assault. Cunningham died from the multiple gunshot wounds, with the sheer volume of bullets making survival impossible. Emergency responders arrived to find a devastating scene with extensive ballistic evidence scattered across the area. The medical examiner's report detailed the numerous entry wounds and the fatal trajectory of several bullets that had struck vital organs. Roanoke police launched an immediate investigation into the shooting. Witnesses came forward with information about the earlier school fight and Martin's threats following that altercation. Cunningham had identified Martin before he died, providing crucial information to investigators. Other witnesses who had seen the shooting or heard the gunfire provided additional statements that helped piece together what had occurred. Forensic analysis of the shell casings and ballistics evidence confirmed the weapon used and the number of shots fired. Police recovered the 9mm handgun and linked it definitively to the shooting. Digital evidence from Martin's phone and social media showed communications suggesting premeditation and planning for retaliation against Cunningham. How did the legal proceedings conclude? Martin was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, with prosecutors emphasizing the premeditated nature of the ambush and the excessive force used. The case moved through Virginia's court system as evidence was compiled and presented. Martin's defense team worked with prosecutors on a plea agreement that would avoid a lengthy trial. Martin pleaded guilty to the murder charges, accepting responsibility for Cunningham's death. The plea meant Cunningham's family would not have to endure a trial where graphic details would be presented. On September 8, 2025, Martin was sentenced to 25 years in prison effective, with additional years suspended pending good behavior after release. The sentencing hearing included emotional testimony from Cunningham's family and friends. They described the loss of Isaac and how a school fight had escalated into a situation that cost him his life. They spoke about his personality, his dreams for the future, and how those dreams would never be realized. The judge emphasized during sentencing that disputes between young people should never escalate to deadly retaliation, and that Martin's decision to obtain a weapon and ambush Cunningham represented a conscious choice to end a life. Martin is currently serving his sentence in a Virginia correctional facility. William Fleming High School implemented additional conflict resolution programs and threat assessment protocols following the incident. Cunningham's family established a memorial scholarship in his name, supporting students who demonstrate peaceful conflict resolution and positive community engagement. The final case would take us to Australia, where a random encounter turned fatal. Australian teenager. In February 2024, in an underground car park at a Queensland shopping centre, a grandmother was preparing to drive home when she became the victim of a random attack. An unnamed individual, whose identity remains protected under Australian law, stabbed Vilene White during an attempted carjacking, ending her life in front of her granddaughter. The perpetrator had a criminal history that included theft and other offenses prior to this incident. Described as towering in stature, the individual had been acting alone during this attack. There were no detailed public information about childhood or family circumstances due to Australian reporting restrictions protecting identities in such cases. What occurred in that shopping centre car park? White had been shopping and returned to her vehicle in the underground car park with her granddaughter. The perpetrator approached them, attempting to steal White's vehicle. During the carjacking attempt, White was stabbed, sustaining fatal injuries. The attack was random, with White simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her granddaughter witnessed the entire incident, creating trauma that would require extensive counseling and support. The car park's surveillance cameras captured the attack, providing clear footage of the incident from multiple angles. This footage would become crucial evidence in the prosecution's case. White collapsed in the car park as the perpetrator fled without successfully taking the vehicle. Her granddaughter called for help, and emergency services responded rapidly, but White's injuries were too severe. Queensland police reviewed the surveillance footage and launched an intensive investigation. The footage provided clear images of the perpetrator, leading to identification and arrest. Forensic evidence from the scene, including the weapon and biological evidence, further linked the perpetrator to the attack. The random nature of the crime shocked the community, with many people expressing fear about shopping center safety. How did the Australian courts handle this case? The perpetrator was charged with murder for White's death. The case proceeded through Queensland's court system, with the surveillance footage providing undeniable evidence of what had occurred. The prosecution presented a case of a random attack on a defenseless woman during an attempted vehicle theft. The perpetrator pleaded guilty to the murder charge, acknowledging responsibility for White's death. The plea avoided a trial that would have been particularly difficult for White's family, especially her granddaughter, who witnessed the attack. On November 13, 2025, the court imposed a sentence of 16 years in prison. During the sentencing hearing, White's family provided impact statements describing how their family is fractured by her loss. They spoke about the trauma her granddaughter continues to experience from witnessing the attack. They described White as a loving grandmother who was simply trying to complete her shopping and return home. The judge emphasized the random and senseless nature of the attack on a defenseless person, noting the profound impact on White's family and the broader community's sense of security. The perpetrator is currently serving the sentence in an Australian correctional facility. White's family has advocated for increased security measures in shopping center car parks and better support for carjacking prevention. Her granddaughter continues to receive counseling to process the trauma of witnessing her grandmother's final moments. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video